Burrows. Ian and I have known each other for quite a while. Sonoma County, Napa Valley, more importantly, San Francisco, I think, is really where you got the biggest shine when you were there at Aerea Vintners, and an amazing chef that Oregon to Willamette Valley. What the heck was to go to come here?
Yeah, because there's not enough sommeliers turned winemakers in this world, right?
Absolutely.
I didn't come up here really to make wine initially, and I fell into it. I had a strong interest in making wine. I'd made a little bit of wine in the Adelaide Hills with a good friend of mine there, and
you can tell the Australian accent here. You guys, anyone? Yeah.
Yeah, a little bit of time in Burgundy, just to play around in Sontenay with the Musard brothers, and then when I landed here in Oregon, everything kind of evolved and went from being a broker of local wines to winemaker all of a sudden.
That's amazing. Well, we got a couple brands here, and we're up here in Laurelwood, which is a great appellation. It really became an appellation last year. Really an exciting place here in Willamette Valley, and we're kind of on the peak here. If we were to kind of look at the bigger Willamette Valley, that's about just south of us here, where the big valley is. But if we were to go over this hill, and we're on the top of the hill right now, we'd be kind of close to Portland. We're looking at about, what do you think, 20 miles?
Yeah, less than 20 miles. Southwest Portland from here, a quick 30-minute drive.
Yeah.
And so we are, like you said, we're really at the most northern part of the main chunk of the wine growing part of the Willamette Valley.
Yeah, amazing. Tell us a little bit about these two brands. This first one, which is amazing.
So we make two brands under one roof. I generally manage this estate. It's called Proteus Estate. It's a very small estate. It's about 3 acres. We're on Southwest Hillsborough Highway, which connects Hillsborough, which is a small suburb of Southwest Portland, and Newburgh, which is one of the most northerly townships of the Willamette Valley wine growing region. And so you mentioned before, we're right at the top of the hill. We're about 700 feet. I'm afforded the opportunity to make my wine here for the current owner, Peter Jacoby, and then another brand that's mine called Aerea. Proteus is basically we make 3 wines every year. Small amount of Pinot Gris, skin contact, a very classic dry red wine from Pinot Noir, and then this slightly more esoteric dry white wine made from Pinot Noir and a little bit of Chardonnay and a little bit of Pinot Gris.
Yeah, I love this. This is really exciting. When I got here today, we had our great friend Levi Seed, who was here. If you guys know anything about Willamette Valley and Willamette Valley food culture, definitely the Joel Palmer House is a big deal. It's a great restaurant, and Levi is from there, and we just had a great lunch. We're tasting through these wines, and I think that really one of the words that I loved it that Levi said is that these wines are compelling. I mean, that's kind of one of the things, and I think about it, what brought you up here, being a great sommelier like yourself, but while you're out there, you're out there, with the shears out in the vineyards, and you care so much about these things. You're not making a huge amount of wines, but you're making ones that really have a lot of intention. So tell us a little bit about your love for these kinds of grapes. I mean, why does it work here in Oregon?
Oh my gosh. There are so many reasons why it works. And first and foremost, we are a cool climate. So we're already afforded the opportunity of making wines of finesse and balance. They generally carry high natural acidity, generally speaking, and they tend to have moderate alcohol. We obviously don't have the climate that a lot of your viewers would be familiar with in California, where we're getting into hundreds of degrees, and we might touch on that a few times over the growing season, just for a few days. But we're generally on the cooler side, so we have low to moderate alcohol, moderate to high acidity. So we have the wines are driven by finesse and brightness and freshness and vibrancy.
You really love the freshness too, and
I love it.
He loves it, and you know what? I love it, and I hope you guys love it too, because that's what these wines are about. They're not only age-worthy. Can you age these wines? Of course, they've got great acidity. They've got great flavors to them, and of course they're age-worthy. But I think that really that acid base is really a key. And hey, listen, if wine doesn't have acid, I mean, I don't even think I'd cook with it. I mean, it just doesn't work.
There are three, things that we want in all wonderful wines. The freshness comes from the acidity. There's complexity and richness that generally comes from, the richness anyway, from alcohol and ripeness of the grapes. But too far in any direction is not a good thing. Yeah. So it's all about like just the right amount. We need enough acidity to counter the alcohol and the ripeness. But yeah, we're just very lucky here. Yeah. In this particular property, I don't really need to do anything with any of the wines, whether it's for Aerea or Proteus. We talk about natural wines, whether that's a good or a bad thing, whether that has a positive or negative connotation. It's very personal, but for us, we just don't really need to do anything. I say, I borrow a term, a phrase from the late Jesus Guillen from White Rose, who always said, and I agree with this entirely, is do as little as possible and as much as necessary. Right. And that's how we do it. You see, there's nothing much other than some
very, very small little place here. Amazingly quaint little area. There's a lot of blueberry little vines out here, like just sweeping fields of them. A lot of grass that's going to be made into turf and different types of things. That Oregon's Willamette Valley is so interesting, you guys, and I really appreciate the fact that you came up here. Now this has got it's a white wine, but it's got Pinot Noir in it, and you go back and you look at some of the stuff that I talk about on my show about sparkling wines that have Pinot Noir in them, and they're not red wines. Pinot Noir is you have to really have a lot of skin contact with those grapes to make it that pink or a red. Yeah. If you just take it, really do it fast, you get a nice kind of clean looking wine. You got a little Pinot Gris in here.
Yeah, it's very low.
And a little teeny bit of Pinot Blanc, which is another great grape that grows well here in Willamette Valley as well.
Yeah, I mean,
they're just very small portions.
It's 95% Pinot Noir. There's more Pinot Gris in it than Chardonnay and Pinot Blanc, because we're really just talking about a few vines of Pinot Blanc, but we're just planted by mistake.
And if you really think back to the genesis of all those grapes, it comes through Pinot Noir. That's really the father or the super genesis of it all, because the other ones are white mutations of Pinot Noir. So that's amazing. Even Chardonnay is directly related from Pinot Noir. So even that grape is part of it. So you got a lot of goodness in this bottle right here, and it tastes amazing. It's nice and dry. Went great with some of the fine cheeses we just had.
It's very savory.
Very savory and fantastic with that mushroom soup that you made. Thank you once again. Let's get into some of the other things here. I mean, you love Gamay.
I do.
And this is one thing here that Oregon, everyone goes, oh, Oregon, Pinot Noir and Pinot Gris and that. Chardonnay has definitely become something very big here too. It's really come back into prominence here as far as the white grapes go. But Gamay, you guys want to talk about a great grape that we don't have enough in America to really get into it. And in the old days, we used to have like Napa Gamay and those kinds of things. But this is the real kind of Gamay. Tell us a little bit about your love and passion for Gamay grape.
Oh my gosh. Well, I mean, it goes back a long way. I started my sommelier career or wine service career with a gentleman in Paris that had a wine bar. He was a big fan of all fresh, early drinking, gluggable red wines, and so Beaujolais or Gamay from the Beaujolais region in France was a big lover of his. And so I became more accustomed to drinking, savouring Gamay back then. That was in the mid-2000s, so 2005 and 2006. And I considered myself, interested and perhaps or more knowledgeable than I actually was at that time about wine. And like I mentioned to you earlier, Chris, it's like the penny really dropped for me. These wines, in the classic sense, when they're made correctly, they not only are delicious immediately upon release, upon bottling and release, but they can also age beautifully for several decades,
Yeah.
2, 3, 4 decades. And you know, there's a misconception, I think, that Gamay is an easy grape to work with. I actually counter that and say it's actually a pretty complex and difficult grape to work with. It likes to do some weird things during fermentation that we have to be very careful of. It doesn't have that svelte, easy silkiness that Pinot Noir does. To coax that character out of Gamay takes a lot of attention. And so it's intriguing for me.
Yeah, that's great.
But juicy, fresh.
I know, it is juicy and fresh. And what I love about these wines that we were tasting earlier, and this one's great. This is the new vintage. This is
2019.
2019. Just how it fills the mouth. It's got a silkiness. The entry is fantastic. The nose is so pretty. I mean, it's got so much rose petal and so much floral component to it, but it smells like great fruit and perfectly ripe fruit. Like, not too overripe, not too underripe. It's perfectly ripe. And that's what I love so much about this. Just how, it attracts you with the aromatics. It brings you in, and then it has this, once again, good, energetic kind of body and texture to it. But the energy about it is just, it's all over the mouth. It covers the mouth, and it coats it with these great flavors. And it, once again, going back to a term that you used, refreshing. It's just refreshing. It's delicious, you guys. And that's what this grape has the ability to do. And I just love your passion for it, and that you're one of the pioneers here. I mean, there have been people before that. Believe me, there have been great people. Like, let's give Harry Peterson Nedry some credit, and some of these other great people that have planted Gamay here. Kind of crazy to do it, but we know it could work. But you're really into it, and you really put, you're just making small barrels of this stuff, and it's amazing.
4 or 5 regular sized barrels of Gamay make it into the pure each year on average, so a couple of hundred cases, which is not a lot, but it's normally about 50% or just under 50% of our entire production each year of wine for Aerea. And to mention, there's been Gamay grown here for 30 odd years. You mentioned Harry, obviously Doug Tennell at Brick House.
Love Doug Tennell.
He's been doing several different versions of Gamay over the years, and then obviously Evening Land, that's now under the control of Raj Pal. There's a lot of really good plant material here. There's been just enough research and to figure out what's going on. More and more people are making it in lots of different styles. This is a very traditional style. There's some more nouveau styles of wine being made. All in all, it's exciting times for Gamay in the Valley.
Absolutely. I'm very excited about this. And if you guys have not had one of these great Willamette Valley Gamays, this Aerea is a great brand to get to know it. And what's the best way to get a hold of you? Like, what's your
just
website?
direct? Aerea Vintners. .com, and just shoot me an email through that, through contact. We have a little bit of distribution nationally. We have a great lady that's looking after our distribution in New York, New Jersey, and Florida. And if you contact me, if you're in the restaurant business and you need to get those wines, we can put you in contact direct there. Or if you're just buying for your own cellar in relatively small quantities, just hit me up directly.
We've got one more that we got to talk about, though.
The Crazy Red.
I'm in love with this Crazy Red. Tell everyone a little bit about this wine, and how the hell are you making this wine? This is insane wine, you guys. But it is so wonderful. It's juicy. It's wonderful. It's dry, and it fills the mouth with pleasure. So how can you go wrong with this situation? Tell everyone about your process of making this amazing wine.
So it's called Aerea Arfozio. Arfozio is the name of the wine. It literally translated from Latin, it means dehydrated or withered, and it comes from the partial process. We make a base wine with regularly harvested Pinot Noir grapes from a friend of mine's vineyard in Bold Peak, the Flâneur La Belle Promenade vineyard. And with that base wine, we supplement it or fortify it really with the fruit that has been air dried for about a month.
Who does this, you guys? I mean, come on. Air drying the grapes.
Yeah, to about 30-40%.
The only thing that we were talking about this earlier, one thing that you could compare it to is Amarone. But Amarone is a much longer drying process and is really meant to make wines that are very deep and dense, and they're really ones that you're going to age for 10 years and then they'll be good. But you know, this is a different process.
Completely, a similar process in theory, but the end result is very different. Like you suggested, the drying time is shortened with the Fazio than a classic Amarone or Valpolicella Ripasso, and so you have like 30 to 40 days of air drying, which shrinks the berry size by about 50 to 60%, which causes us one issue, which is obviously a lack of yields. You know, smaller amount of yields, but it intensifies not only the flavor of the grape, but also the tannins. So we have a polymerization of tannin structure in the skins, and it intensifies acid and sugar. So we have a higher potential alcohol, but still this wonderful bright acidity. And we pick on the earlier side still. We're not trying to do any air drying or over ripening in the vineyard. Right. So the wines would, if it wasn't air dried, they would still be a classic alcohol level of about 12.5%. But with the air drying component added in, raises it by almost 1% alcohol to about 13.5%.
Yeah, 13.5%. If you guys know California wines, that's low. You know, I mean, and that's the thing too. I mean, you have worked at such great restaurants. You have an appreciation for food. You're a chef. You started out as a chef.
Yeah, I'm an amateur chef.
Yeah, but he's actually good, you guys. But I mean, you really put. I mean, you've got ingredients here. The way you prep it, all these kinds of things that you're doing, you're creating flavors that are so unique. Yeah. And I mean, you are being a chef here. You really are.
We're doing exactly the same work in this cellar as any chef would do in the kitchen. I see it. Like I come from that gastronomic background. I'm not trained at UC Davis, I have no qualifications formally in winemaking. So the way I approach winemaking is just from a culinary standpoint. So every bottle of wine is produced with the hope that it is going to accompany food. At some point, it's like.
Well, I just love the fact that, I mean, we're talking about these amazing topics, but we've got Pinot as a base of a white wine, which is great. And that's the owner of the Properties brand right there. And this is your own private brand where you have another Pinot Noir right here. Yeah. But it's a very different style of making. No one makes Pinot Noir like he does. It's just, this is a very interesting thing where you do take the grapes and you dehydrate them. And it's so interesting that intensity is there, but it's not, we're not chewing through this wine. I mean, that's the biggest thing. It's not a tannic monster. And sometimes we get into that, and sometimes it's just, Pinot is such a lovely grape, and it needs to be lovely. You know, it
deserves to be.
It deserves respect. You know, and I think you do such a great job respecting that. And then also, we got to talk about the Gamay. I mean, like, you guys, this is a great example of what we can do in America, and he's doing a great job with this. And I think that's why I'm so excited to be here with you and to come and visit him. Like, believe me, we used to go to the tastings in San Francisco. We were always there. Oh, how are you doing? Oh, Chris.
Yeah, like passing chips.
We're doing it all the time. And now I'm here at his winery. You know, like this is a place where he makes this brand for the great proprietor here, and this is his own brand that he makes here. And this has been a fun day. I've really enjoyed it, and thank you so much for having me.
Thank you, Chris.
And you know, thanks for coming. Let's give once again Levi a nice little plug there, because he did come with us too, and we had a great luncheon, and we just really sat here and got into these wines. And these are the kinds of wines that we really want more of, and we want people that are boutique producers like Ian, and we're so lucky that we've got you.
Oh, I feel lucky as well.
Cheers.
Thanks
brother.
for the support.
Absolutely.
Cheers, Chris.
Yes, brother. Love it.
Thank you.
Thanks for joining us, everyone. We'll see you next time for the Varietal Show. Cheers.
Cheers.